English podcast from English Learning Hub.
Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast from English Learning Hub. I'm Liam, and I'm really happy to have you here with us today. Joining me is my good friend Emily. Today we're talking about how to speak English smoothly, without those awkward pauses that can sometimes make our conversation feel choppy. We know that learning a new language can be tough, and sometimes you might feel like you're stopping or stumbling over your words. But don't worry. We're here to share some real, everyday tips that helped us become more fluent, and we'll keep things relaxed and natural.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. I remember when I first started learning English, I would often pause for what felt like forever. I was always worried about finding the right word or saying something that made sense. I'd stop, take a deep breath, and try to think of the next thing to say. It wasn't easy, and it made me feel frustrated sometimes. But over time, I learned that it's not about being perfect. It's about finding ways to let your thoughts flow more naturally. Today, Liam and I want to share with you some of the simple methods we use to speak English more smoothly and confidently.
Absolutely, Emily. You know, one thing that really helped me was thinking in English instead of my native language. When I used to translate my thoughts from my own language into English, I would pause a lot because my brain had to do extra work. It was like trying to run a race while stopping every few steps. So I started to try to speak in English right from the start. I would describe what I saw around me, or even my own feelings, all in English. It felt a bit strange at first, but soon it became more natural, and I found that I paused less often.
Yes, I can relate to that so much. I used to describe my day out loud while I was cooking or getting ready in the morning. I'd say things like, "Now I'm cutting the vegetables and I'm looking forward to a nice, warm breakfast." It felt like a little conversation with myself. Over time, I noticed that my brain got used to forming sentences in English without stopping to translate in my head. It wasn't about being fancy with words. It was just about keeping the flow going.
One of the best parts of learning this way is that it makes your speech sound more natural. You don't have to worry about pausing in the middle of a sentence because you suddenly forgot a word. Instead, you learn to keep going, even if it means using simple words or phrases that you're comfortable with. It really builds your confidence.
Confidence is so important. When you feel unsure, every little pause seems much bigger than it really is. I used to think that every pause was a sign of weakness, but I've come to understand that pauses are natural. Even people who speak English as their first language pause sometimes. The trick is to know when a pause is a good pause, a moment that helps you emphasize a point, versus when it's a sign that you're stuck.
Exactly, Emily. I remember when I was in a conversation with a friend, and I would catch myself pausing and saying or too often. It made me feel self-conscious. But then I learned a simple trick. Break your thoughts into small chunks. Instead of trying to say everything at once, take a brief pause after finishing a small idea and then continue. This kind of pause gives you a moment to breathe and think without making the conversation feel awkward.
Breaking your thoughts into chunks is a real game changer. It's like having little stops along the way that let you reset and then keep going. I used to practice by reading simple stories out loud, and I would focus on speaking in short, clear sentences. It wasn't about rushing through. It was about keeping a gentle rhythm in my speech. Over time, that rhythm helped me speak more smoothly, even when I was talking about something new or complicated.
And speaking of rhythm, one of my favorite tips is to work on your breathing. It sounds simple, but proper breathing can really change the way you speak. I started practicing deep breathing before I spoke, which meant taking a slow, deep breath and letting it out slowly. This helped me relax and gave me enough air to keep talking without stopping too soon. When you have a good flow of air, your words come out more easily.
I agree, Liam. Breathing is something we often overlook. When I get nervous, I tend to hold my breath without realizing it, and then I end up having to pause to catch it again. Now, I make a point to take a deep breath when I feel a bit anxious. It helps calm my mind and makes my speech sound more even and natural. It's amazing how much a little focus on breathing can help.
Another thing that helped me was practicing with simple exercises, like reading aloud every day. I'd pick a short article or even a few paragraphs from a book and read them out loud. At first, I made mistakes, and I noticed where I would stumble or pause. But as I kept doing it, I began to see improvement. Listening to myself helped me notice the areas where I needed more work, and it also helped me build up my confidence.
That's a great point. I used to record myself when I was practicing. At first, it was a bit embarrassing to hear myself, but then I realized it was the best way to track my progress. I could hear the moments where I paused too long or repeated a word, and then I worked on those parts. It was like having a mirror for my voice. And over time, those recordings became a reminder of how much I was improving.
You know, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the idea of speaking perfectly. But the truth is, speaking is about communication, not perfection. Even if you pause or make a small mistake, your message still gets across. We all have our own unique ways of speaking, and those little imperfections make our speech more real and human.
I couldn't agree more. I used to worry that every little pause was a sign that I wasn't good enough at English. But I've learned that it's all part of the process. Every time I pause, it gives me a moment to gather my thoughts and then continue with what I want to say. And often those pauses make the conversation feel more natural and less rushed.
One more thing that has really helped me is joining a conversation group. There's something very encouraging about talking with others who are learning too. It takes away the pressure of trying to be perfect because you know that everyone is on the same journey. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. In these groups, we share our experiences, laugh at our mistakes, and learn together.
Yes, I love being part of a group like that. It's very comforting to know that you're not alone. When you listen to others talk, you start to pick up little habits and phrases that help your speech flow better. Sometimes just hearing someone else speak naturally can inspire you to change your own habits. It's like learning by example, and it feels so natural when you're among friends.
And sometimes, the simplest advice is to just keep practicing. I know it sounds basic, but the more you speak, the more comfortable you become. I try to remind myself that it's okay if I don't get it right every time. Every conversation is a chance to get a little bit better. Even if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. It's just a step on your journey to becoming a better speaker.
That's so true, Liam. I always tell myself to enjoy the process. Learning a language isn't a race. It's a journey that you take one step at a time. Sometimes you might feel like you're stuck, but then you have a breakthrough moment when everything starts to flow naturally. Those moments are very special and remind you that progress is happening, even if it feels slow at times.
One thing that might help if you're feeling stuck is to try something fun like tongue twisters or simple improv games. I remember trying tongue twisters for the first time, and it was both challenging and fun. It pushed me to move my mouth in new ways and made me more aware of how I was speaking. Improv games, too, help you think on your feet. When you're in a relaxed, playful setting, you don't worry as much about pausing or making mistakes.
I have tried those, and they really work. Tongue twisters not only improve your pronunciation, but also help you become more comfortable with speaking quickly and clearly. And improv classes have taught me to trust myself a bit more. When you're in a game and you make a mistake, everyone just laughs together and moves on. It teaches you that it's okay to be imperfect, and that often, a little mistake can lead to a funny or unexpected moment in the conversation.
And speaking of funny moments, sometimes I look back at old recordings of myself and can't help but laugh at the silly pauses and the way I'd repeat words. It's important to remember that these moments are part of our learning process. They remind us of where we started and show us how far we've come. It makes the journey feel more personal and less like a chore.
I love that idea, Liam. It's so important to celebrate our progress, no matter how small it seems. Every step, every little improvement counts. And when you look back, you'll see that those moments of hesitation were just stepping stones on your way to becoming a more confident speaker. I try to keep a positive attitude even when I stumble. It's all part of learning, and every mistake is just another chance to get better.
You know, another tip that I found really helpful was to sometimes speak in front of a mirror. It might sound a bit odd, but when you see yourself talking, you become more aware of your expressions and the natural flow of your words. It's like you get to watch yourself improve, and it gives you the courage to keep going.
Yes, speaking in front of a mirror is a simple yet powerful tool. It helps you notice your body language and how you use your facial expressions. I started doing that when I felt nervous, and I soon realized that the way I looked while speaking was as important as the words I was saying. It made me more aware and helped me smooth out those pauses naturally.
And while we're on the topic of practice, let's talk about planning what you want to say. Now, I'm not talking about writing a full script, but sometimes having a few ideas in mind can help you feel less lost when you speak. I usually think about the main points I want to cover before I start a conversation. This way, even if I pause for a moment, I already know what I want to say next.
That makes a lot of sense, Liam. I do something similar when I'm about to give a talk or even just have a long conversation. I jot down a few keywords or bullet points so that I have a mental roadmap. It doesn't have to be detailed, just enough to keep me on track. It takes away some of the pressure of thinking on the spot and helps keep the conversation flowing.
And sometimes, those mental roadmaps can be as simple as remembering a short story or a little example that illustrates your point. When you have that story in your head, you can use it to bridge the gap between your thoughts. It's like having a backup plan that you can rely on if you feel your words are slowing down.
I've found that telling a personal story works really well. People love hearing about real-life experiences because they make the conversation more engaging and relatable. When you share a story, you're not just reciting facts, you're connecting with your audience on a human level. And trust me, a little pause to gather your thoughts during a story can actually build suspense and draw your listeners in.
That's a great point, Emily. Our goal is not to sound robotic or overly rehearsed, but to sound like we're really talking to each other and to you, our listeners. Even if we have a few pauses here and there, they remind us that we're human, and that makes our conversation more genuine.
Before we wrap up today's conversation, I want to share one more thing that really helped me: being kind to myself. There were times when I would get frustrated with every little pause or mistake, but I learned that being hard on myself only made it worse. Now I try to see each pause as a moment of thought, a natural part of speaking. This change in mindset has made a huge difference in how I view my progress.
That's a wonderful outlook, Emily. Learning a language is full of ups and downs, and every little pause or stumble is just a part of the learning process. The more you practice and the more you speak, the more those pauses start to feel natural and even helpful. They give you a moment to catch your breath and to connect your thoughts, and that's something every speaker can use to their advantage.
Remember that progress is not measured by how perfectly you speak, but by how much you improve over time. Every conversation is a chance to learn something new about yourself and about the language. Celebrate the little wins, like speaking for a whole minute without stopping or sharing a story without getting too tangled up in your words.
I also want to remind everyone that our journey in learning English is a long one, and every step counts. Don't worry too much about being perfect. Instead, focus on making small improvements each day. Celebrate the moments when your words come out just the way you want them to, and learn from the moments when they don't. Over time, these small steps add up to big progress.
That's right. And I think it's important to have fun along the way. Sometimes when you're having fun with the language, those pauses start to fade away naturally. The more you enjoy speaking, the more natural it feels. So try to mix up your practice routine. Sing a song, watch a funny video in English, or even chat with a friend about your day. The more varied your practice, the more you'll see your skills grow.
Every time you speak, every time you listen, and every time you practice, you're getting closer to your goal of speaking English smoothly and confidently. We hope that by sharing our own struggles and successes, we've given you some practical ideas that you can use in your own learning.
Right, Liam? And if you found today's talk helpful, share it with a friend who might need a little boost in their English-speaking journey.
Every pause you make is a chance to think, breathe, and then speak again with clarity. We're all in this together, and every little step forward is something to be proud of.
Exactly. Whether you're just starting out or you've been speaking English for a long time, there's always room to grow. Take your time, be patient with yourself, and most of all, keep talking.
And if you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to click that like button, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We're always excited to hear from you and to learn about the little tricks that help you along your language journey. Your feedback really helps us make better content and keeps our community strong.
We hope you feel inspired to keep practicing, whether it's by speaking in front of a mirror, recording your voice, or simply chatting with a friend. Let's keep making progress together, one word at a time.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found our conversation warm, helpful, and encouraging. Keep practicing, keep smiling, and we'll catch you in the next episode of English Learning Hub.
Have a nice time.